Vandeham
Can you guys move up? Great. So we've been discussing this topic called Prism of Consciousness. And so this is part 2 of it. I'm very tempted to say that you might want to visit our Facebook site, VVS's Facebook site, to go through part 1, because we spent over an hour and 15 minutes talking about part 1. And so for me to repeat all of it would be really tough. But we'll summarize just so that you have a sense of what we've been talking about. And the rest of the folks are going to help us summarize it. And we want to test how good your memory has been for a whole week. So, anything do you remember from last week? Let's go in a systematic manner. I mean, what was the premise? What were we talking about last week?
We talked a lot about karma.
Karma, okay.
Modes of nature.
Be more explanatory for them. Karma, modes of nature. Does it mean anything to you?
Yeah,
You ever heard karma? What is that? What does karma mean to you?
I'm just familiar with this topic, but I heard about that something in the universe caused with no reason.
Something in the universe?
Yeah, caused by no reason,
Uh-huh.
but or maybe we are not aware about the reasons that may cause an effect process, but it happens, but I'm not sure about the
Okay.
source.
Okay. So, for the sake of beginning a discussion somewhere, karma simply means two things. Action, whatever we do, an action, and every action has some reaction associated with it. Right? So that's basically karma. So we do something and something comes back to us now or later, or from a Vedic perspective, even at lifetimes later, it does come back. Okay? How did we start last week's discussion?
Consciousness.
Yes, we were conscious.
How it's affected by the 3 modes of nature.
Why did we talk about how consciousness is affected by modes of nature? Correct.
I think from what I remember, the 3 modes of nature were like the different color filters.
Yeah, very good. You're warm. You're getting in the right neighborhood. Yes?
You gave an example of a dark room and a well-lighted room. And
Yes, I did.
dark room represented ignorance.
What does a well-lit room represent?
I mean, you gave an example
You're
of
right.
what's
Who said
outside.
passion? Go ahead.
You gave an example of what's outside the
Correct.
room, and we are like,
Right now, what I'm hearing is that I have the jigsaw puzzle. It's just that it's not put together. Like, there are different pieces, and all the pieces are right. It just needs to be.
Everything we do is controlled by 3 basic modes. It's a mixture of 3 modes of tamas, rajas and sattvic.
Okay.
So
The
that's all.
basic premise with which we began is, why is there so much variety around us? Remember? Where does all this variety come from? And we said that there is variety across This is not the Illinois lottery. This is the 8,400,000 species of life that exist. And we went, these are the plants or trees, animals, birds, humans, insects, and aquatics. These are so many classifications, and within each there are so many millions of species. Where does this variety come from? Why is there variety? Some people say, well, it just happens. Some people say it's random. Some people say we don't know, there was a bang and something happened. But some people say there is the modes of nature, and the modes of nature three modes of nature give rise to these varieties. And these three modes of nature affect our consciousness. And our consciousness is in its original condition pure. These three modes contaminate the consciousness, by which we start thinking, I am this. When we say I am, this is our first two conversations this semester. I am actually a spiritual entity. But because of the modes of nature, I begin to think that I am a human being. But whichever species we are in, we think I am that. For example, so the influence of the three modes of nature on our consciousness is called conditioning. We become conditioned to. Our identity transforms, or we believe that our identity transforms into something. So, for example, a living being, a living entity, soul, when in the body of a tiger, moves and acts and behaves like a tiger. That's the same soul in another life, when in the body of an insect, from 4 legs now has 8 and behaves like an insect. Thinks like an insect, behaves like an insect. That very same soul moves into a human body and thinks and behaves like an insect. Like a human being. So, depending on what body it occupies, its consciousness gets conditioned to thinking that I am. Now, for example, most of us except Ramya and myself, I think, are students on campus. Willow and adults not. So, students, right? If someone were to ask you on campus, who are you? You would say?
Student.
Yeah, second year, first year, freshman, sophomore, something. But is that who you really are? No, you're either an Indian male or Indian female, or African American or female, whatever. But once we are on campus, we get conditioned into thinking, I'm an IIT. Does IIT have Hawks, right? Football team? Nobody heard about that. But once you're on campus, you begin to root for this team, because now you're suddenly an IIT. You're not that, but you conditioned yourself to thinking, I'm an IIT, because you're in IIT. You graduate from here and you go to another university. I went from Oklahoma State University. Our football team was the Cowboys. and our mascot was Pistol Pete. I really didn't like the football team. Therefore, I changed my university. I went to University of Georgia. They have a much better football team called the Georgia Bulldogs. And so I really liked that. Their mascot was a bulldog. I loved the football team. And I was very happy that I made the right choice, right career choice on the basis of a football team. But anyway, so when I was at Oklahoma State, I would look for, when is Oklahoma State playing with, the Oklahoma Sooners or whoever, Nebraska. And I was like, oh, I'd be into the game. Very much. And then I moved to Georgia, and I didn't care what happened to the Cowboys. I was very much into what happened to the Bulldogs. Because now I'm conditioned into thinking, I'm a, Georgia student. Like that. That's called conditioning. And now I left both universities. I don't care what happens to either of the football teams. I really don't catch up on football so much. Okay? So that's called conditioning. Once we are in this body, we are conditioned. The soul is conditioned into thinking, I am this body. So the whole path of spiritual journey is to go back to become unconditioned, to not be influenced by the modes of nature anymore, and understand that this is who I am. And if this is who I am, then I have certain activities and certain characteristics, and my life should be on the basis of who I am, not on the basis of who I think I am. So this is called soul or spirit, and therefore these activities are called spiritual. This is called material body, so these activities are called material. So the idea of spirituality is to move from material activities to spiritual activities. Say it again. The whole idea of spirituality is to move from material activities to spiritual activities. But it's not just a change of activities. The beginning is to change consciousness. Because as consciousness moves, activities move. It's not the other way around. It's not that activities change, therefore consciousness changes. Consciousness changes and then activities change. So the whole idea of spirituality or spiritual life is to become more and more aware and to live by our real identity. So we have, in this form of life, that's not possible to do. Because plants cannot exert volition. Understand volition? Acting on their own. They cannot do. They are highly governed by, influenced by the modes of nature. For example, the weather is getting colder. Noticed anyone? Yeah. So what happens? The leaves are
Withering.
falling. No tree, there is no oak on campus that says, this winter I'm going to get a new jacket and I'm not going to drop a leaf. It doesn't work like that. They're highly conditioned. So they respond to the influences of nature. What about animals? They have mobility but not volition. Right? So a tiger does not say, like we used the example a few weeks ago, the tiger will not say, today I'll let the antelope go. I had a good day. No. Sees the antelope, chases it. True? You guys are with me? Makes sense? So nod your head, so I don't know. One way to know is that if you nod your head is that you're awake. Because being in school, we become experts at sleeping with our eyes closed. Anyway, I'm joking. Okay. So animals have mobility but no volition. Birds, extreme mobility. They can fly, but no volition. Insects, aquatics, similar. mobility but no volition. Here is where this is a very special species. This very special species has the very special facility called volition. It can choose to do something or not do something. Because in this species, we have the sense of acting, consequences, choices, whether I want to or I don't want to. Everything is choice-based. Is there any human activity that is not choice-based?
Death.
Very good. Death. Can't choose to not die. What
Birth.
else?
Birth. Being born.
Being born. Old age. We can have a lot of cosmetics and Botox injections. We still will get old. And disease. And just the influences of nature on us. Like going to the bathroom. No one can say, from today on, I shall not go to the bathroom. That would be really silly. Do not try this. So there are certain things that we have to respond to nature. However, those things are just there. But our life's not just that. Our life is not just going to the bathroom. We have other things to do. That's where the choices make or break it. Now, what choices we make in our life will be guided by what? Very good. More importantly?
A lot of what we desire also.
Okay, so let's this is the end action. So what action we perform depends upon the desire that's there within. So this is gross action with the body, and this is subtle action with the mind and intelligence. Right? First there is always subtle action. I would like to eat something, and then I actually go. So there is subtle action, and then there is gross action. What influences the subtle action? Previous
species in which we are, the species in which we are put in.
Okay. What else?
Consciousness.
Okay, great. Who said something? Karma? The three modes. Goodness, passion, ignorance. What makes the modes of nature influences? What decides the karma?
Action.
Right? So, this is called the cycle of life. This is what it is actually. So, we're here. We're talking about whatever action I perform is influenced by the modes of nature. But in all of this, when we say consciousness, for this session I would like you to think of it in terms of choice. That's the consciousness. Our choice, I'm going to use a particular language because I'm building towards karma. Okay? The particular choices we make are influenced by the modes of nature that are acting, that are influencing our consciousness. Okay? So, from last week's discussion, ideally, which mode of nature would we like to influence us?
Good.
Goodness.
Goodness. Okay. Any other answers?
Influenced, not be influenced by any of the modes. Transmit.
Pure
That's a
goodness.
fantastic answer. Any other?
All of the three.
All of the three.
Like not
No,
Don't finish it. Yeah?
depends upon the situation,
Okay.
which to apply.
Say more. Give me a specific situation that you would employ the mode of ignorance.
I don't have an example right now, but
I want to go to sleep.
yeah, that's
You were going to say something.
would a mode of ignorance be to be influenced by pain? Because pain, and to make a decision that's influenced, that's tinged with
We
pain.
discussed
Oh.
that goodness generally signifies things that are pure, clean, nourishing, duty bound. Passion primarily signified by high intensity, selfish,
Competitive.
competitive. Ignorance is primarily lifestyle choices that are hurtful, painful, defeatist, sleep, lazy, unmotivated, or was that just pessimism, etc. So, however our consciousness is being influenced, we will make a particular choice. Okay? Now, whether it is goodness, passion, or ignorance, there is choice, desire, and action, and oh, by the way, there is karma. However, since we are trying to become really good-looking spiritualists, the trick of the trade is to act in such a way that there is no karmic reaction. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Because when there is karmic reaction, the karmic reaction perpetuates or moves us to get another form of life. We don't want another form of life. We want our original identity. So we have to, the goal of spiritual life is to stop karmic reactions. That means we cannot act in goodness, we cannot act in passion, and we cannot act in ignorance. But we have to act nevertheless, though, correct? Because who's acting? Is the body acting or is the soul acting? What do you think? So let me ask you a question. This is scientific. I move from this side of the room to this side of the room. Did my body move my soul, or did the soul move my body?
The soul
Soul
is the
move.
body.
The soul moved the body. How many agree? How many disagree? How many would like to neither agree nor disagree? So, your reasons for neither agreeing or disagreeing?
I think we can
Speak
argue
loudly,
both ways. Well, we can actually argue both ways. We can say that the soul is the overall controller. It gives us
consciousness, and since we are consciously deciding to move from one place to another, we could say that the soul is what moved the body. But we could also say that the soul is just an observer, and so it is the body which is moving the soul. The soul is neutral and doesn't act.
So, the difference between a alive and a dead person was because body by nature is dead. Like if I have to go in my car from Chicago to New York, who drives? The car takes me there, or I take the car to New York? So, because the active principle is not the car, it's the person. So the active principle is the soul, not the body. Because when I leave this body cannot go from one end of the room to the other end of the room. It goes from one room to the crematorium. So it's the soul that moves the body. It's the soul that moves everything. Because body by nature is dead already. It's inert. All of this movement is because of the presence of soul. Once the soul leaves, no movement. As long as the soul is present, there is sense of beauty. The moment the soul leaves, even the so-called good-looking person, people don't want to be anywhere close to that person or body. In fact, it's either buried or burnt.
So then how do we say that the soul is neutral and just an observer?
Soul is neutral and observer, not when it is conditioned. Its consciousness gets conditioned into thinking, I'm doing something. It's in the mode in which we would like to operate. It's called the mode, or this is the mode. It's called transcendence. As the word implies, transcend. Transcendence. In transcendence, the soul is the observer. It acts, does things without being affected by the things that are going around. It doesn't mean that it doesn't act anymore. It means that it is not influenced anymore. It acts without being influenced. Usually, when we talk of karma, we give this example. There's a soldier. Okay? He is wearing a uniform, he or she. And the government gives them a gun. Okay? And when they are fighting a war, they use that gun. And if they kill many other enemy soldiers and they're returned home, they're given a medal, an honor. True? For doing, wow, you've killed so many enemy soldiers. Here's so many medals of honor. Purple Heart or something like that. Now the soldier goes home for vacation and is barbecuing in the backyard. And the neighbor's dog runs into their house and barks at his wife. He takes the gun that the government had given him, shoots the dog, the neighbor's dog. What do you think happens? Purple Heart goes away. The government arrests him and says, you've acted irresponsibly. The gun that we gave you, we're going to take back. We're going to strip you of all your medals and discharge you with, dishonorably discharge you or something. But you guys gave me the gun, a few days ago I used it and you gave me all the medals, and now you use it again and you say, whoa, what's wrong? It's the facility was given for a purpose. Correct? And when that facility was used according to purpose, there was no reaction from it. But if it was used outside of purpose, there's a reaction to it. So transcendence means using the body and the mind according to purpose. Yeah? Clear? Then there is no karmic reaction. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of using this body and mind? The purpose is to develop our, or come back to our original identity, our spiritual nature, our spiritual identity. So if our activities, our thoughts, our words, our actions are for this purpose, then we do not incur karmic reactions. If our thoughts, words and actions are simply on the basis of I am this body and I want to have the sense of enjoyment, whatever, then there is a karmic reaction and the cycle of life perpetuates. This is the difference between a spiritualist and not a spiritualist. They seemingly do the same things. They talk to people, they eat, they also do things of life, they work, they do other things. But their trajectory is very, very different. Because what is different, if the actions are not different, seemingly not different, what is different is their consciousness, the desires with which they are acting. So we use the phrase that when our conscious goodness, let's look at this, and this is a nice way of saying it. Please remember this word, conditioning. It's very important, it comes again and again. In the mode of ignorance, who is this person acting for? For his own? In fact, even not for himself.
Maybe for
himself or herself. Because this ignorance means pessimism, defeatist, lazy. So this person in mode of ignorance does not even do anything for themselves. They're lazy. They don't do anything that's even beneficial for themselves. True? Okay. Person in the mode of passion.
Only themselves. Only themselves.
Only themselves.
Brothers. Everybody.
Higher authority.
For in goodness, there is a sense of duty. So it is for others and themselves. It is others. They do this for others because they feel good. It makes them feel good. I like that. Okay. Here, it's all for me. This is what drives me. I don't care what happens to others. I like to call this, it's the WIIFM model. What's in it for me? This is what guides. This is their mantra for life. And if there is even little benefit for them, they will do anything. Okay? So they don't do anything for themselves. These do it only for themselves. Person in the mode of goodness do for others and themselves.
For the absolute truth. And that trickles down to others and yourself.
Absolute truth. Very good. And we discussed a few weeks ago what is the absolute truth. confident. Say it.
God.
God-centric. Because when this is taken care of, this is already taken care of. This is already taken care of. And this is not even an issue anymore. Acting a God-centric man. Very, very important. These activities do not cause karma. So we discussed food, remember? In the sheet, the yellow sheet that we all had, and we had a little, did anyone do some exercise of looking at it later in the week as to what's going on? Let's take food. Food in the mode of ignorance, we talked about it. It does not do anything for themselves. It's food in the mode of passion, we discussed what it is. That extremes. And it's hurtful, right? That was the characteristic of food in the mode of passion, that it is hurtful. Food in the mode of goodness was respectful, right? Because it didn't have to cause harm to other animals. It didn't have to cause harm to other living beings, as far as possible. And by that, they maintain. Is there food in transcendence? Yes. It's called Krishna lunch. I'm not joking. It's not an ad for Krishna lunch. That's the whole idea behind Krishna lunch. This is an hour commercial for Krishna lunch. Now, food in transcendence is God-centric, because we've been talking about this whole idea of gratitude. So in Sanskrit, that word is called prasad. Prasad literally means mercy. So we as living beings, we are sustained by food. Especially as college students, that's definitely fully realized statement. We're sustained by food. And food is not something that comes about by our own endeavor. Every farmer has to sow his seed and just rely on higher, I'll use the word higher power. So when food comes, when rain comes, food manifests. And the Bhagavad Gita describes, if food manifests and a person just eats it because it has manifested, then technically that person is called a thief. A thief because he or she has taken that food without acknowledging, without honoring, without respecting, without being grateful for how that food has come. So generally in other traditions or religions, at least they say what's called saying grace. You thank. But this is a one step higher than that. Not only are we thanking, but we are actually offering everything back to God first. Because He is the first rightful enjoyer of food. In Sanskrit there's a term for it. You want to guess? Naivedya. Okay, that's the food. But the whole process by itself is called yajna. That's what it is. It is, in English it's called sacrifice. Meaning, I have put in my labor, but it is actually happening because of powers beyond my ability. And the first offering goes to that source. And we're talking about God, so that first offering goes back to God. This is called yajna. And this is the cycle that is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Yagyat bhavanti parjanya. From yajna comes rain. From rain comes grain. From grain is what we get, and we offer it back in yajna. When one lives one life, especially in the matter of food, when we perform the proper yajna, that food is transcendental. And that transcendental activity, does food affect our consciousness?
Yes.
Okay. Like anyone needs convincing about that one? No. Whatever we eat or what we eat influences how we think. True?
Yes.
True. So, if it is transcendental, then our consciousness, the choices we make based on that food and activities will not generate karma again. So, food is just one example. Then let's take an example of work. College students aspiring for work. You all want to have a job someday, true? Otherwise, why go for school? Anyone loves their PhD and master's courses so much that they don't care for a job, they're here only for education. Usually doesn't work like that. Anyone here like that? If you are, then you have my due respects. We're here because we want a job out of it. Right, Tapan?
Yeah.
Correct. So, something for you to think about for next week's discussion, homework, is tell me how it looks like in these 4 modes. It's already in that yellow sheet for as far as these 3 modes are concerned. So all you have to do is look into that sheet and you got it. Where a little thinking has to be applied is, what does work in the mode of transcendence mean? Here's the clue, but I'd like you to verbalize it for me. Homework is clear?
How our student activities would fit into that?
Work, once you get a job.
Okay.
You can do student activity also if you like. I'm just trying to simplify it for now. And I'd like to hear from you when we start next week what this means. Okay? Questions? Comments? This is your first time. Something, a comment, something? Make sense? So this is like, no, does it make sense?
No, it made me like smile inside, and I just feel like very
We like
happy
people
to
who
share.
smile. That's good.
Really happy to be here today.
Okay, good. Thank you. Made you happy. We'll make you happier in a few minutes when we serve lunch. Questions?
Any question actually? It's been a long time since I have heard some philosophy from India. So it's very good.
Krishna.
Trying to understand more about the gratitude aspect. You spoke about rains and things like that. So, for every activity or everything we receive, are we to show gratitude
That is correct.
mentally, and to whom? Is there a
God-centric. We talked about it. We talked who God was,
yeah.
who God is, not was.
So we thank Him for the rains and things like that, or do we
Of
thank
course.
the rains directly?
No. Suppose I serve you with a spoon. You thank the spoon? Spoon is just the instrument. Thank you, spoon. You're so big and round that you really filled my stomach so much. We completely ignore the person who's smilingly serving us. That's impersonalism. We're all about personalism. God is a person. This is a reciprocal exchange happening here. It's not some abstract thing and things are, happening just by chance or in some order, and there's this abstract entity. Very much a person. Just because you go to the bank You swipe your ATM card and you punch in your number and money falls out of it. There is no person who's giving you money? Is there a person who's paying you? Yeah, it's ATM, not the ATM,
Boss.
but your boss. Is a person. It's just the medium it looks like, well, there's no person involved, but without a person you cannot get anything. So God is very much a person. It's just that the instruments are such that we might not understand that.
I think when I'm confused is every aspect of life, how do you end up thanking? Like for
Yeah.
sleep,
Why not?
how would I verbalize that?
So it's not just verbalizing. We're not a little thank you machine here. Thank you, thank you. That, for every moment we say thank you. I breathed in and I'm alive. Thank you. I breathed out and I inhaled and exhaled. Although that is true. So what is it? That the best demonstration of gratitude is to act in that spirit. So you live your life that is God-centric. Service to God. And that's the best form of gratitude. And that service to God then has to be on the transcendental platform, not on goodness or passion, definitely not ignorance.
Thanks.
You can't be selfish and say thank you to God. It doesn't make sense. Because then that's not service. You understand? It's a transaction. I go to a bank, I withdraw my money, the teller gives me my money, and I say thank you. The teller's not giving his or her money. You understand? The thank you is just what's called functional. We don't even mean it, it comes out. It's still selfish. Suppose the teller says, no, I will not give you the money. Will we say thank you? We might use other words. Short, 4-letter ones. But we won't say thank you. We will say something. We'll utter some other sound vibration. You understand? But in God-centric life, we are not dependent on whether God is giving us something or not giving us something. If He gives us something, great. If He doesn't give something, great. Because now we are into, it's a relationship. It's not about what's coming from you, what's not coming from you.
Thank you.
By conditioning, what we actually do is conditioning, the soul gets conditioned or consciousness gets conditioned.
Well, soul is always blissful, cognizant, and eternal. That doesn't change, but its consciousness gets changed.
So conditioned soul means what actually?
The consciousness is conditioned.
So conditioned soul means? It's a
Conditioned
soul
soul means that the soul whose consciousness is conditioned.
I have heard the term conditioned soul, so I was thinking
Correct.
how the soul gets conditioned.
That's to explain that the soul is identified by or understood by the presence of consciousness. That's the only way. Because there is consciousness, you can say that there is a living entity. There is no other way that you can say this is the soul. Because you cannot see it, touch it, smell it, access it, think about it. There's no other way. So when you say conditioned soul, the symptom is that the consciousness is conditioned. Okay, then anything else? Okay, we'll stop here, we'll have lunch.